Nigerians are facing a critical situation, skyrocketing food prices and hunger. The government has implemented several measures to address this crisis, including suspending import duties on certain food items and distributing food aid. However, these actions are sparking debate. The burning question for us today is, how do we ensure food security for all Nigerians? Akintobi Olanrewaju, CEO, Lanse Farms, joins me for this. Thank you for joining me today, Larry.
Much, and thank you for having me.
Right, we also have with me Adetiloye Ayeola, Produce Export Development Alliance, Lagos. Thank you also for joining me today.
Thank you very much, Professor, for having me. Thank you.
All right, let me begin with you, Larry. I mean, it's no news that the federal government has sort of been rolling out measures to tackle food inflation and sort of stimulate growth in the economy. And one of the measures taken by the government is the suspension of duty on food imports. Let me get your reaction to this particular measure.
Thank you. I think that step is more like neglecting leprosy and tackling ringworm. Because the major issue why we have this challenge is not being solved. What we are trying to do is to find the easiest way out. Presently, farmers cannot go to farm because of insecurity. The cost of production has increased by three times. Labor is even hard to find now. A lot of these challenges are there. But what we are trying to do is to just find the easiest means out, to go and find, okay, let us do something that will just give us that quick glory or quick intervention, while the fundamental issues are not being solved. Climate change is there, capital is there, every other aspect of it, even infrastructural deficits are there. But what we want to do is to go and find cheap food and import food. What now happens to the farmers that have spent a lot of their fund to grow food this cropping season? When you bring in cheap food, what now happens to them that have been spending a lot of money to be able to grow food? A lot of them are buying fertilizer now at over 40,000. In 2-3 years ago, it was around 17,000-20,000. What now happens to labor that you now pay almost ×5 to even get labor now is a challenge. Now, when you bring in this cheap food, what now happens to the farmers who has gone to get capital or get loan to be able to produce food?
Larry,
and then you bring in cheap food and then they will now sell it at a loss.
Okay, Larry, I would like Adetiloye to come in here. Let me get your thoughts. Do you share the same sentiment with Larry?
Absolutely, I do. And it's very critical that we bring topics like this up over and over again. This move is dramatically going to affect our ability to produce food in Nigeria. One thing that we have really focused on as a country is that we're really focused on food security, right? We've not done so much about food sovereignty. That is, we're trying to get to just feed our population irrespective of wherever the source is coming from. And we're not focusing on how we can actually control and build a more robust food system that will allow us to become food sovereign in the country. This move is going to dramatically impact the gains that we have made over the last 8 years. Now you see a scenario where, like Larry has just rightly said, farmers are taking loans to actually produce in these very tough times under very high intense condition. There's insecurity, there is high cost of inputs. There's so many challenges, like you mentioned. Labor is very difficult to find, and then you introduce cheap food into the system. Now it will indeed do a lot of things in the sense that it would actually calm our population. It's a great move. However, what it does is that it will actually impact. So at the end of the day, some of these farmers are not able to pay back their loans. It's going to affect
Adetiloye, let me come in here. I think you've made your point, but I remember I've had a conversation with you before where you said agriculture isn't just about business. Now, looking at that, it's about the social safety, security, and health of a nation. So don't you think you're making this more of a business conversation, more like, okay, these guys have invested, they need to make gains and all of this. What about people that are dying? What about the children that are suffering from malnutrition in the north? I mean, based on some of the reports we've seen, especially the one from Doctors Without Border, aren't we looking at all of these also?
You're very correct, and it's very sad what's happening in our country, whereby people have to go go to sleep hungry. No one should be going to sleep hungry in a country like Nigeria that has lots of arable land and teeming population that can actually, grow food. Not just only grow food, but ensure that proper distribution is done. What we currently are facing now is a very disrupted and fragmented food system. And with that fragmentation will come a number of unintended consequences, like not able to produce food. Indeed, food agriculture is beyond culture. It's beyond business. It's really about people and foods on tables. And we've got to consider all aspects when making policies, in the sense that, yes, indeed, people will be able to feed themselves, right? But it is not sustainable. We have a crisis on our hand, and I'd like to make this point before we move on. We have a crisis on our hand. It's a perfect opportunity. It's the perfect crisis for us to get our food system in place. We must not misuse this crisis, because if we do, and if we don't manage it well and build internal infrastructure, internal systems, harmonization, distribution network, storage systems, production areas dedicated to certain productions of food, what will happen is that we would have to suffer this in about maybe 3 years, maybe 4 years, maybe 5 years. Somewhere down the line, we're still going to come back to this place where we are. So it's best that we deal with this now for future generation. It's quite sad that anybody should go hungry in Nigeria, especially a country that has diverse production terrain. We have the Sahel, we have the desert arid regions, we even have mountainous region in this country. So we can really produce anything that we want to grow. It's just that we need to be able to support our local food system. Right. It goes beyond aid. Actually, it also goes beyond putting in market infrastructures in place, market intelligence to help farmers, and also support systems and extension to help them grow food and distribute it properly.
Right, we'll come to that. We'll come to that later on. Larry, now, I still want to take us back to some of these measures, because I would like to have your thoughts on each of them. Now, the federal government has sort of reportedly dispatched 20 trucks containing 1,200 bags of 25 kilograms of rice each to the 36 states and the FCT. Now, considering the hunger we're seeing in the land and in households, how significant do you think this step is?
Nigeria is one of the countries that I've seen that is involved in food sharing. Government should not involve itself in food sharing. What government should do is putting infrastructures in place for food production to thrive. It's putting system in place for food to move from the right place, from the point of production to another place. Presently in Nigeria, the rice per capita, annual per capita for one person is around 32 kg. Now, a family of 3 will consume around 100 kg of rice in a year. Now, when you say you want to share 25 kg, that would be around 90 days, maybe around 3 months. How many people are going to, get this rice? We've seen situations where they share food and it didn't get to even the people that was intended for. That's one. Secondly is, what is the sharing process? Now, if you're sharing rice, is rice the only food that we consume? Even presently, rice is actually not for the poor man because it's too expensive for people to afford. If you buy the rice, how are you going to boil it? How are you going to preserve and bake it? Are you going to? What's the cost of tomatoes now? What's the cost of even the cheapest protein, which is egg? So the thing there is, why is government sharing food? That is not. It's a quick fix. It is not even a quick fix, because if you are sharing 1,200 bags of rice, Bayelsa, which has the smallest population in Nigeria, is over 2 million. So how many people are you going to share that rice to? Is it going to be a case of everybody gets 2 cups of rice? For how long? So the question is, how long are we going to, waste resources? What governments in other serious countries they do is to subsidize food production, support farmers. When farmers produce, buy from them.
But you know, Larry, some would
Subsidize it.
argue with you and say those are mid to long-term measures. In the short term, people are actually hungry. And of course, we know the government has taken some steps, some reform initiatives. We're sort of waiting for those initiatives to give us the sort of expected return. So in your own opinion, beyond sharing food, which you think is a bad idea, what are your recommendations for, something quick just to alleviate what's happening, alleviate hunger and all of those things in the land?
So my quick fix is to support the farmers that are growing food now. Sharing bags of rice will not solve the problem. It's not even going to get to the people that is intended for, because it's not going to, alleviate that food system as food problem. What we need to do is support farmers such that they can produce as at when due. The problem we are facing today is our failure of the past. So if we are going to solve that problem, is to get to work, ensure that people have access to, production system and production needs, such that we don't have this problem later on. 2 years ago, we experienced serious flooding in major food producing states in Nigeria. Over $15 million loss of rice produce. Now, and that is the problem, because we didn't solve our flooding issue. Till now, that has not been solved, because this year now rain has come. Who knows what is going to happen in the next few months? Because we didn't solve that problem 2 years ago, now we want to import rice, because we failed to do that 2 years ago. And all of the gains of ABP over the years has been wasted. Now we are going to import rice when we have local rice farmers that are doing their best to produce food, but they do not get the support.
But some will argue with you that these local farmers, they are doing their best to get food out there. But the food isn't out there. So in the interim, something should actually be done. But away from that, let me go to Adetiloye now. Now, for mid to long-term measures, Adetiloye, do you think the government is actually moving the needle? Is it really doing anything to address, the long-term issues and, structural issues in agricultural sector?
Well, I think that this current minister is very serious about food security. One of the major pointers to me that we're moving forward as a country was in the change of name from the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security. It's very important. It shows the focus at which we're going towards. Now, on the mid to long term, have I seen so much done? I wouldn't say that, because all I can see is that they're trying to, put in short-term measures in place, yes, which will obviously alleviate current challenge, with food, in the country. At the same time, right, would also, if not properly dealt with, would actually decimate our long-term food sovereignty, process, right? It would decimate it. So, but in the midterm, my recommendation, right, would be that the government starts to then focus, just like Larry had mentioned, start to look towards not sharing food, but actually subsidizing strategic food production efforts, subsidizing farmers, buying produce off farmers, and then distributing. At the same time, too, production is not only our problem in this country. Over 33%, according to the World FAO, over 33% of food gets wasted from the farm to the market, or probably to the doorstep. Now, what we need to be able to do is that also put in post-harvest prevention measures in place that would ensure that all the food that we produce do not go to waste while we are producing them. There's a shortfall, right?
All right, Adetiloye, thank you. I totally understand what you're talking about. The food, before it even gets to the table, it has already wasted, and we have over 40%, over 33% getting wasted and all of that. It's our hope that this government will do the needful. Thank you so much for your thoughts on the show today.
Thank you very much.